transfer news engine has been shifted into sixth gear as we accelerate towards the start of the 2025 season. Today, we talk about the changes at the goalkeeper position. My name is Kevin, I'm joined by Luis, and together we're the Quakesaholics. So to start off the news, San Jose Earthquakes have transferred goalkeeper Emi Ochoa to Cruz Azul. This deal was hinted at by Tom Boger, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. It's finally confirmed, and the Quakes will be receiving a reported $2 million in this deal, plus a percentage of any future transfers. This is really big news, so Luis, I'll kick it off to you first. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, I think, last episode when it was still just being reported. And yeah, I said it then, and I still will say it now that I think it's great business. And it's also a transfer that I think does serve both parties or all parties. Ochoa, obviously, he has a lot of talent. Being as young as he is as a goalie is not very common. And he's been able to get a lot of minutes with the Town FC. And also, him being Mexican, obviously, is another thing checked off for Cruz Azul. So I think that it's a great bit of business. And to get 2 million this way for a player that, although has a lot of potential, is still unproven at the highest level is great.
So you did mention age. Do you at all think that this might have been premature? Would you have preferred to see Emi maybe play more for the first team? Because I think he only did play once, and that was in the Open Cup against Oakland. That was a 1-0 clean sheet. I thought the performance was good, but a little bit shaky at times, but I know other people feel differently. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so because that's kind of already priced into the move. You know, for $2 million, it for such a young player, you are kind of paying, expecting or hoping that that player blossoms into something in the future. And so for that reason, I don't think it was premature. That's kind of the nature of goalkeeping is a lot of the time you're not 100% sure how they're going to develop until, further in. With that being said, Ochoa is a promising player for sure, but he's still really young. And I don't think that anyone, including himself, would probably be comfortable with him, being the number one keeper at Quakes, at least for a few more years. So I think that all that being said, getting 2 million now is fair, and again prices in the expectation that he will improve and he very well may become a starting level goalie in the future. So yeah, no, I think that it's great business and it suits everyone.
Yeah, and I think knowing what we know now, I think it was the right move to not try to get Emi MLS minutes at the end of last season. I know a lot of people were asking for that, but with the situation that our defense was in, I think if we played Emi, it would have been a goal fest, and that would have made his stock drop probably tremendously. I think having him have just been playing the Town FC probably, not that it like sugarcoats his talent or anything like that, but I do think it protects the image a little bit compared to just playing in MLS.
This is kind of something that we hear, from time to time, or things that I've read on comments or whatever, throw in this player, throw in that player, or, just give the youngsters minutes, throwaway season, whatever. But I don't think that that's always, good for their development all the time. I don't think that just throwing them in the deep end and then getting, thrashed, getting 4 goals put past them or something like that is gonna really be an experience that they can take many positives away from. So yeah, I think that you're right. And again, he still got a lot of experience with the Town. I think we mentioned in the last episode this was a player who was goalie of the month in the month of September last season. And he's been in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure 2 seasons running for the Town FC. So he has had experience just at the level that he should be getting experience at.
Yeah. So all in all, good luck to Emi. Thank you for your time here with the Quakes, even though it was just one in the first team. But 48 appearances with the Town FC, that's an impressive number. And all the best in the future endeavors. Okay, so moving on to maybe not as happy news, maybe even controversial news, depending on how you see it. JT Marcinkowski, we did know for a while now that it didn't seem like he was going to be coming back, that the Quakes did not renew a contract, they didn't renegotiate a new one, and it's now been reported that JT Marcinkowski is signed as a free agent to our rival, the LA Galaxy. There's a lot to this situation. I think it's really complicated. I have thoughts on this as like a human. I have thoughts of this as a Quakesaholic. I guess starting at the beginning, the first question would be, should the Quakes have even kept JT? Luis, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's difficult to say just because of the nature of his injury, having it be such like a difficult traumatic injury. I don't know what he would have been like if he would be, just back to his old self. So I feel like that's what makes it difficult when it comes to answering the question of whether keeping him is the right move.
Really, I'm thinking about this as like JT in 2023 before the horrendous injury. And I was looking at those numbers from that season, comparing that to some of Daniel's numbers. And just from my own perception, I do think, at least to me, it was pretty clear that Daniel deserves to be the starting goalkeeper for the Earthquakes. And so that puts JT in a difficult position because he's been used to being the starter. He's been here for so many years. This is his hometown club. And I just, again, based on what we saw, I don't think there was a plan for JT to be the starter. And we don't know what the conversations were, but I think the perception of it is that, yes, JT had a horrible injury. And now I get the perception that like maybe it looks like the Quakes are kind of tossing him to the side. And because of that injury, they don't think he'll come back. I don't know if that's necessarily true. That is the perception of it. Like I understand that. But you also have to think about it from his perspective. This is an athlete that wants to compete, and maybe he wants to be a starter, and maybe he sees himself as a starter at a different team because he knows his body and he knows what he's worth. And I understand that. And another part of the conversation is money. JT was on a lot of money for goalkeeping standards. He was on $400,000 a year based off of the last MLS PA reports. That's a lot compared to other goalkeepers. I took a look at LA Galaxy, which is where he's going. John McCarthy is on $290 a year. I looked at LAFC, who have a World Cup winning goalie who's on $350 a year. And so I don't know what the new terms of the deal are, but I can also see a situation where if he was asking for that kind of money, like the Quakes aren't in a position to be spending that. Like between Daniel and JT, it's $850,000 a year. It's really hard to justify that given the output. And that's not to say that there aren't keepers that make a lot of money in this league. There are, like Roman Burki from St. Louis is making well over $1 million. That's a DP player, but that also is a goalkeeper of the year recipient in MLS. So I think money is a really complicated part of this, and I'd be really interested to hear on those details, which we probably won't for a while, if ever. And then down to the actual statistics, like I said, Daniel seems clearly better than JT on a per 90 basis in basically every single category. But then I looked at LA Galaxy, and McCarthy's per 90 actually aren't that incredible. I don't think it's that surprising that LA Galaxy are a successful team because of their attack. But in terms of goalkeeping, like I can definitely see a perspective of JT thinking, hey, I can be the starting goalkeeper there. And I understand that. And if that's the case, then I mean, power to JT. After all, it's a career, and I think it's completely unfair to expect that players care about the club the way that fans do. And from that perspective, I understand this move.
It does make sense, if he thinks that he can compete and if he thinks that he can come back and, perform at the level he was at previously, which was a high level. And I mean, he was the number one goalie and with not, too many complaints surrounding that. I remember when Daniel came in initially, a lot of Quakes fans were kind of questioning that move because of the fact that we already had JT. In hindsight, a lot of Quakes fans would agree that Daniel is the number one goalie.
And so to reiterate, my human take, my sporting perspective take, as you just mentioned, is like, this makes sense for the Quakes. This makes sense for JT. I think it was an objectively good decision to go to LA. I don't know what the other options were, but like just looking at the current situation there, I understand it. But it is the Galaxy, and that makes it that this situation has another side of the coin. And there's a lot of fans that are really upset with this. And again, from a Quakesaholic perspective, this is really upsetting. This is not the first time we've had a goalkeeper go. This is not the first time we've had a big name Quakes player go. Like, we've had a lot of snakes, traitors, whatever you want to call it. But I think this one hits even harder that this is a homegrown player. I'm pretty sure this is the first homegrown player that has willingly, as a free agent, gone to the LA Galaxy. I think I've stated my thoughts. Luis, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think that it's undeniable, right? Having, this is a historical rivalry. And I think that's something that maybe gets swept over a lot of the time because, MLS has changed quite a lot in the past couple of years. And you have your El Traficos, your Hell's Real Derby, I think it is. There's a lot of derbies now. Some of them are commercial derbies, but this one is like a real genuine rivalry. And, the Bay and Southern California, we've had our rivalries for as long as American sports has been a thing. So, yeah, and I think that a lot of Quakes fans have a right to be annoyed, and especially from a player who, was very someone that who is very warm, someone that you could talk to outside of the field after a game, very approachable, probably one of the most approachable players on the squad. And to have him do the unforgivable thing, the unforgivable move is painful. And Quakes fans like ourselves are right to feel aggrieved about that.
Yeah, that was really well put. But that's the situation on JT. When it comes back to the Quakes, now the question is, what is next for the Quakes?
If you look at the moves we've made this offseason, I think it's pretty obvious that we're gonna have to get at least one more guy in. To lose the starting Town FC goalie and both backup goalies for Danielle, a player who himself has had his injury problems in the past, I think that, it's nice to get Earl Edwards in, but I think that anybody seeing this current situation, the current roster, looks at it and can see that we need at least one more goalie in.
Yeah. And then the other names that you didn't mention are Jacob Jackson is also departed. And then Mikołaj Biegański, he was the Polish keeper that had like a 2-week stay with the Quakes. Basically, we're at 2 keepers and we've lost 4 keepers this window. So agreed that we will need to sign someone. Cool. So that's all the news we had on goalkeeping changes, mainly departures. We'll have to stay posted for any incoming players. If that happens, we'll be sure to cover it. If you enjoy the video, please consider the typical YouTube pleasantries, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.